Hello, SEC Country. I'm Brandon Adams, and this is SEC Country Live. A little bit different version of our program here today on National Signing Day. You'll notice I am not wearing my traditional SEC attire here. I am wearing my Dog Nation attire. The reason for that is because coming up in a few minutes' time, we're going to allow you, our SEC audience, to join Dog Nation minutes here on SEC Country Live here today. For now, though, I do want to get into what has turned out to be one of the craziest signing days of all time and has turned out to be one of the biggest stories that National Signing Day has ever produced. And all this comes by way of a very big name in the world of football. That's Deion Sanders, the former, I think you could call him the GOAT, probably the greatest cornerback of all time in the NFL, two-time Super Bowl winner with the Cowboys, with the 49ers, obviously Pro Football Hall of Famer. Now signing.
I'll tell you guys this. Signing day is tomorrow. I'm going on record to tell you guys we're going to shock the country. I'm telling you right now, you've heard it from me. We're going to shock the country. You're not going to wait to this air to air this what I'm saying.
All right, we'll cut it. And
every news station,
put that out today.
Every news station, I promise you.
So everybody has a tendency to want to say this ahead of National Signing Day. Hey, we're going to shock the world. We're going to shock everybody. For the most part, that never really ends up being true. In this particular case, though, what Deion said then, and you heard him say this to the Barstool gang, hey, don't wait till this show airs. Go ahead and kind of cut this clip out and put it out there for the world to see. Make sure folks hear this, that we're going to shock everybody on National Signing Day. Well, what Deion meant then, that we pretty much all know now, you've probably seen this, the nation's #1 recruit, Travis Hunter. He is just from up the road from where I'm sitting right now in the Atlanta area, Collins Hill High School, a program that just won the 7A state championship in Georgia this past weekend. Hunter, the nation's #1 recruit, both a wide receiver and a defensive back, says on Twitter, it's official. Go Tigers, Jackson State. He has flipped his long-standing commitment to Florida State and gone to Jackson State. That is the school, obviously, that Deion Sanders is the head coach for. This one of the biggest signing day surprises of all time. Now, in and of itself, this would be a big deal. A recruit like this leaving Florida State to go to a HBCU, an FCS program like this, this in and of itself alone would be enough to be a very big deal. I think one of the things that makes this potentially an even bigger deal is the fact that the rumor here is, and no one's really been able to confirm this yet, but the rumor here is that Hunter has done this for a sizable amount of name, image, likeness money, possibly $1 million, if not, multiples of that, $2, $3 million. Those are the numbers that have been thrown around here. But at the very least, it seems like a 7-figure sum could be what's on the table here for Travis Hunter for making the decision to decommit from Florida State, sign with Jackson State. That's kind of where this is right now. And so if you're an SEC fan, you're watching this happen. Obviously, if you're a Florida fan, you kind of like the idea of your in-state rival kind of getting kicked to the curb here a little bit. You probably like that for those reasons. But for other SEC fans, there's also just some general curiosity about this too. First of all, you've got 24/7 Sports Steve Wiltfong, who has said that there are other big-name recruits that Jackson State and Deion Sanders could be in pursuit of. He said that, I guess, earlier as of, 3 o'clock Eastern time right now. I haven't seen any more substance as to who those names might be. Remember, not all big-name players will sign here in December. There are some that will carry over into January and February, so we may learn more about this in the weeks to come. But obviously for SEC fans, you're left to wonder, well, if Deion could get to Travis Hunter, nation's #1 recruit, could he get to one of my program's top recruited players, one of my favorite teams' top players that's still out there? Could Deion get there to that? There have been rumor names connected to, for instance, Texas A&M that have come up around some of this kind of stuff. Georgia has had a name or two rumored to potentially be in the mix for Deion Sanders, and all that is still very much rumor and innuendo. There is seemingly very little substance to all of that, but I guess the thought being on the internet that if Deion could get to Travis Hunter, then virtually anything is possible on that. And I think for a lot of SEC fans, they're left to decide, well, how do we really feel about this kind of money potentially being at stake for a player like Hunter and the decision to go to Jackson State? And it's worth pointing out that not everyone is against it. There are plenty of people who are very much in favor of it. There are plenty of people who say, hey, the kind of money that Hunter is allegedly cashing in on here is only similar to what coaches have been earning for a long time anyway. We see them bounce from job to job. We see that affecting the stability of the sport, that a player like Hunter getting a chance to cash into at a similar level that the coaches have been cashing in on. For some people, this is a welcome change for college football, and you're hearing that voiced pretty prominently right now across all the places the college football fans gather and chatter about this. There is also the flip side of this, which is, boy, this really doesn't feel like college football as we've known it. This doesn't feel like, your daddy's college football, your granddaddy's college football really at all. And there are some people that kind of wonder, is this too much change too fast? And is this the kind of disruption that has the potential of threatening a sport that I certainly love? And if I'm guessing, if you're watching me right now, you probably love there as well. That's part of the debate ongoing for SEC fans here. On the one hand, name, image, likeness being the kind of thing that players ought to be able to cash in on. On the other hand, those who say as they do cash in on it, does this become the kind of pay-for-play type thing that makes college football not really feel like college football too much at all? In fact, I'm looking forward to hearing in the comments section exactly what folks feel about this, because I know there will be strong opinions expressed on this. The other thing that's kind of interesting, this is maybe more of one of those things, as I said, if you're a Florida fan, you probably just kind of like the idea of watching Florida State's misery here on this today. There is some sort of general entertainment value in watching Florida State, who had, they just felt like they had fought for Hunter the entire time. And Florida State's been so bad on the field, a lot of folks had kind of wondered for a while, well, can you really get the nation's best recruit if you're this bad on the field? And over and over again, Hunter had reaffirmed his pledge. Just yesterday, Mike Norvell, I guess it's thought was re-upped, got an extension there at Florida State. And then the next day, you've got Deion Sanders, an alumnus of the program, a former, Florida State great, one of the top shelf Florida State greats of all time, swooping in to get Florida State's best recruit in ages. You got to go back a long time to find a recruit of this caliber going to Florida State. Deion swoops in and gets him, and as you might imagine, there are some Seminoles fans who are not very happy about this, and some who've even taken their displeasure to this to a maybe greater degree than others have, and maybe beyond the degree in which they should have. Let me show you this video right quick. One Florida State fan, I guess, is burning his Deion Sanders jersey, and as somebody mentioned on Twitter, they're burning the autographed Deion jersey without even taking it out of the frame. First of all, this is just dangerous, right? You start burning things like this. There's no telling, especially in some of the dry areas of Florida, you get brush fire stuff happening pretty quick here. First of all, I think there's also the chance of you just setting yourself on fire doing something like this. Probably not the best idea in the world, but this kind of goes to show you how upset a lot of Florida State fans are right now at Deion for swooping in and getting Travis Hunter, to the point they're actually burning the Deion Sanders jersey, in light of that. Now, listen, I'll be the first to tell you, Deion's job right now is not to be a Florida State booster. He works for Jackson State, and to the extent that he can compete with Florida State recruits, you better believe that he's going to. How do I feel about NIL and stuff like that? I'm not probably as big a fan of that as some of y'all are, but in terms of Deion, he has nothing to apologize for going out and trying to get the biggest and best player that he possibly can, and that's what he's done there with Travis Hunter there right now. So there's obviously a lot going on related to this. We'll give you a chance to kind of weigh in on that. We'll also get ready to cover live with you in just a couple of moments. Five-star safety Kamari Wilson choosing amongst a number of schools, Georgia, Florida included. We will let you see that here in just a little bit. Chris Walshcott on Facebook saying, I have no issues with these young men getting their money. And a lot of folks are going to feel that way. And I understand where that sentiment comes from. One of the things I continue to be a little skeptical of is when it comes to Barstool, Deion, and Hunter. These are the three entities involved in this. And by Barstool, I mean it is rumored that Barstool is the one that may have put up the money for NIL for Travis Hunter. We don't know that to be true yet. We may find out something different on that. But that's kind of the rumor. Let's just say for the sake of conversation, that is what's true. Obviously, whatever brand might be putting this NIL money up for Hunter, it actually kind of benefits them to make the numbers seem as big as possible because they get more mainstream media attention. The media that reports on this loves the idea of big number, million, 2 million, 3 million. It makes for a better story. Deion likes the idea of the bigger number being out there because it makes it seem like he's the kind of coach that can attract that value for his players. So he's not going to dispute that figure. In the case of Hunter, obviously, he hopes that he's getting that kind of money, but he also probably likes the idea of the prestige that comes with being the player that's connected to such a high dollar figure. The point here is that if somehow the actual figure that Hunter is getting is less than the kind of 7-figure stuff that's been thrown around, there are really very little motivation on the part of any of the entities involved or the media that's covering this story to go back and correct themselves and later on say, hey, I know we told you it's all this kind of money, but actually it's way less than that. It's almost like there's a attitude of why ruin a good story. So I remain pretty skeptical that Travis Hunter's going to have $1 million in his hand at any point in time. I just don't believe that, but that's obviously what's being reported. I said the same thing about Bryce Young when he first got his supposed $1 million endorsement deal. I've still never seen Young's face on any kind of commercial or anything like that. I'm honestly not sure the $1 million that he's supposedly getting, where that million's even coming from, but that's been out there. I said the same thing about Quinn Ewers the other day. You know, Ewers goes to Ohio State, stays for 5 minutes and leaves. Supposedly, you know, when he first came to Columbus, had this like $1 million NIL deal, but we've heard nothing about that since then, since he transferred out of the program. It's almost like some of that was just exaggerated on the front end. Would I be surprised to find out eventually that the same thing is true for Travis Hunter here? No, I would not be surprised by that. No one's going to come out and say that because the big number just sounds good. But that's clearly what's being kicked around here. And whether this, even if the figure is way less than some of the internet speculation would suggest that it is still probably true that the NIL variable here is one of the things that has convinced Hunter not to go to Florida State and go a little more unorthodox route at the Jackson State level. Carlos Turner says not ruining it, but does make it a level playing field. By the way, you get a early look there in the state of Florida at Kamari Wilson, who's getting ready to make his announcement here coming up in just a moment. We'll have live coverage of that here in just a bit. We'll kind of switch over to Dog Nation in a moment, but if you're on SEC Country, you don't have to go anywhere. You'll be able to watch this right here with us. We will do that here in just a bit. And there had been some internet chatter a little earlier about Kamari Wilson potentially, you know, being in play for Deion Sanders and Jackson State. I don't have anything to, you know, substantiate that. I don't, but that had been one of the rumors that's out there. There's been some Florida chatter as of late over the course of the last few hours. Obviously, Georgia has felt good about this for a while. We'll find out in a moment exactly what Kamari Wilson does when we cover this for you live here in just a little bit. A couple more comments kind of rolling through here. Mark Chambers says NIL and transfer portal are ruining college sports. There's no doubt that it's making it different than the sport that we grew up loving, I believe. And there's no doubt, if you ask a coach, a lot of them privately will probably admit they don't like the NIL stuff. You know, some programs seemingly embrace it more so than others. Privately, they'd probably all admit they don't love it. But the one thing that they would emphatically say they hate is the way the transfer portal plays out. This is the greatest destabilizer. It's actually not the NIL money because for the most part, only a small handful of players have any chance of cashing in on NIL whatsoever. There's just not going to be that much money thrown around the way that sometimes it's portrayed to be. But the transfer portal is a lot more wide-reaching than that. The transfer portal is obviously a lot more impactful on the sport than that. And I can promise you that privately, coaches hate the transfer portal. They do. And it is destabilizing the sport to a degree. Jason Dangerfield on the subject of the HBCUs. Obviously, what Deion has done to raise the profile of Jackson State has been really remarkable. I saw some footage at the end of last season where, you know, you had huge crowds there on hand to watch the games being played. You know, the one thing that Deion is great at is just cultivating attention. I mean, he is kind of a cult of personality. He generates a lot of attention. So creating the kind of move like this that gets more eyeballs on Jackson State, and that's the kind of thing that Deion's going to be good at. Let me see if I can get a couple of YouTube comments, and we'll get ready to cover the Kamari Wilson announcement live here in just a little bit. Of course, while I'm also pulling up those YouTube comments, let me remind you about my friends at Merriweather and Tharp. You know, they're your source for divorce here around SEC country. Now, they're based in Atlanta where I am right now, but you don't have to be in the city of Atlanta or even the state of Georgia to take advantage of what they offer for you. You can use them as a resource no matter where you are. That means going to their website, theatlantadivorceteam.com. That's theatlantadivorceteam.com. Connecting with their blog posts and podcasts and the opportunity for an initial consultation with one of their attorneys and asking your questions about the divorce process. Because if you've got questions about the divorce process, Merriweather and Tharp has answers for you. So you can find them online, theatlantadivorceteam.com. That's theatlantadivorceteam.com. Merriweather and Tharp is your source for divorce all across SEC country. Obviously, the holiday time of year brings up the unfortunate fact that some relationships just may be damaged beyond repair. Well, if your marriage is severed beyond the point where anything can be done about that, It's time to put a strong advocate on your side that understands the law, how it impacts you for the things that maybe matter more to you than anything else. Your certainly relationship with your children, but also your finances, those important weighty topics. That is what's on the other side of a divorce proceeding. And Meriwether and Tharp understands that. So find them online at theatlantadivorceteam.com, and they will they'll be a strong advocate for you every step of the way. Meriwether and Tharp, your source for divorce here around SEC country. Dallas Schwartz checks in via YouTube to say he saw that Bryce Young in a pizza commercial last month. Well, there you go. Maybe he is getting some commercials. The right man Shay checking in to say, even if we'd gotten Travis Hunter, he's, I guess, a Georgia fan here, says, so the right man Shay not happy with Kirby Smart with his handling of the quarterback situation, it appears, based on what he says there about Travis Hunter. Other comments kind of weighing in here. Foster Moss says Jackson State is taking over the Benz this Saturday. Is that the Freedom Bowl this Saturday? Is that when that is? Is that Freedom Bowl? Am I right about that? So Jackson State taking that over for sure here in the Atlanta area where I happen to be. Other Facebook comments kind of roll on here as we kind of react to all of this. Jason Dangerfield says nobody ever talks about giving money to the 18-year-old baseball players. Yeah, I would also say, though, Jason, there's a lot less of that than there used to be. Minor league baseball, if you looked around, it's not exactly a thriving industry right now. In fact, there are major contractions in terms of minor league baseball teams that have kind of gone away. And the kind of big bucks, like the bonus baby, so to speak, players used to get, they just don't get nearly as much of that as they used to. And it seems like that's going down each and every year. I think what the major league teams have discovered is it's not always a great investment. There are still some guys who get it. But there's not a ton of guys that get it, and it's also not a very successful batting average in terms of who does get it and who actually goes on to be a Major League Baseball player. I think this is the concern that a lot of college football fans have about the kind of big dollars that could be thrown around to players like this, including the rumored amount for Travis Hunter, is they don't want college football to become like minor league baseball. Minor league baseball is not exactly a thriving business right now, and they don't want college football to become the same thing. So that's the argument there. Let's see what else. Celebration Bowl. What did I say? Did I say the wrong bowl? I'm sorry, Mr. Christmas. Celebration Bowl. Excuse me. Guy Cody Caldwell says this is the John Calipari recruiting process, one and done. Get paid at JSU and transfer out to a bigger program. Yeah, I mean, look, even if there is a contract in place for let's say $1.5 million, that's one of the things I've heard. I mean, I think the idea is there is some benchmark for incentive that almost certainly would have to be achieved for that money to come the way of Hunter. The idea that he could, get this $1 million and then kind of, bolt out of the program. My guess is that there's some sort of if the NIL deal actually exists, my guess is there's some sort of contractual thing that would prevent that from happening, almost certainly. And to the person a moment ago who compared this to John Calipari in Kentucky recruiting, where we've seen a lot of one-and-done type players, a lot of guys who come to college with only the NBA on their mind. We have a lot of Kentucky fans that watch our show on a regular basis. Would you say that being a Kentucky basketball fan has been very fun over the last few years? You've had a lot of pros, a lot of guys that go on to great success at the NBA level. It hasn't really meant much for your college success, though. A lot of the Kentucky fans that I know spend a decent amount of time actually fairly frustrated about the fact that the college experience doesn't seem to mean more to the Kentucky players who come through that program. So once again, I don't know that many of the folks who are watching us right now want SEC football to become like Kentucky basketball. Based on the way things have gone the last couple of years, that doesn't feel like a compliment. A few more comments rolling in. Alan Verbanchik says no one should ever be mad at a young kid's choice. I would agree with that. Listen, if I had a chance to scarf up what has been rumored to be a 7-figure sum for making an unorthodox college choice, I'm probably making that there as well. In the case of Hunter, he was probably smart to make it. But it's one thing to say, hey, I don't fault Hunter for choosing what's in front of him. It's another thing to ask the question of, what does this mean for the future of college football? And I don't think it's unfair to Hunter to suggest, hey, this may suggest some kind of wild days ahead. Joel Moody says, this is not your dad's college football, but I wish that it was. Brian Burnett says the state of Florida is pretty salty today. And, yeah, I mean, obviously Florida State fans are devastated, not just losing out on Travis Hunter, but losing out on a defensive lineman like Tyree West that they thought might flip from Georgia, but instead went to Tennessee. And so, there's obviously a lot of that that's kind of out there. Miami's obviously, had some of its issues there too. And, listen, Florida with a coaching staff that kind of got thrown into the 2022 cycle on short notice. They're obviously trying to figure some things right now as well. But one of the guys that Florida does have a chance to win with is the guy we're about to show you, Kamari Wilson here, the 5-star safety, getting ready to make his announcement coming up in just a moment. This is a battle that Florida seemingly is very much a part of. Florida also hoping to get back late with a former commit, Shamar James, a linebacker that'll make his decision much later on this evening. So obviously Florida trying to make the most of what it can, salvage something from this early signing period with a brand new coaching staff, and Kamari Wilson provides an example for that here coming up in just a little bit. We're going to go live on the Dog Nation video channels in just a little bit. Terry Young pointing out the LSU hat. Yeah, we see an A&M hat there. We see a Florida hat there. We see an LSU hat. We see a Florida State hat. Unless it's blocked, we don't see a Georgia hat there right now at all, so I don't know what that means. No Georgia hat on the table at all right now for Kamari Wilson, so we'll figure that out in just a little bit. If you're on our SEC Country channels, you're going to get a chance to watch this live with us here in a moment. We're also going to be going on the Dog Nation channels here in a moment there as well. Let me also remind you of a couple of things here. First of all, this is going to be our final edition of SEC Country Live for 2021. We're going to take the next 2 weeks off for the holidays, and when we return in 2022, we have some big surprises in store for some things that we're going to do new here on SEC Country Live. Our biggest year yet for this show is going to be in 2022. And after a couple of weeks off, we'll look forward to getting back at that with all of you here coming up in just a little bit on that. So looking forward to being able to do that with you there in 2022. So enjoy some holiday time yourself, Christmas and New Year's with your family and friends. We'll see you back here for more SEC Country once again there in 2022. Also, a big shout out to our friends at BetUS. Still time for you to get involved on the big football that's still on its way with bowl season and with the pro football playoffs and all the stuff that's on the horizon there. BetUS, the one to know. All those games, more fun to watch when you've got that BetUS account signed up. And if you haven't done that yet, big opportunity to do that and a huge incentive when you do. When you use betus.com and the promo code SEC125, you're going to get 125% sign-up bonus. That means you put in money, BetUS is going to put 125% of that total into your account. They are literally going to put more money in your account to start than you're going to put there. So big opportunity to get involved with BetUS. Make sure you check that out today. BetUS.com, promo code SEC125. Take advantage of that. They're America's most beloved sports book. You don't get that way unless you take good care of your players. And for more than 25 years, that is what BetUS is doing, including you when you sign up at betus.com. Promo code SEC125 for a lot more on that. All right, so the big news on the horizon here, time to turn our attention for 5-star safety Kamari Wilson. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to let you park there right where you are on the SEC Country video channels on Facebook and YouTube. We're also going to pause here, welcoming our Dog Nation video audience there as well. I'll be back with more once that audience has a chance to join us. Thanks for being on SEC Country Live. We'll see you in 2022 for more of our show. Also, stay right here with us for more Dog Nation coverage of Kamari Wilson and his announcement. That's on the way. Stick with us, folks. You see their live coverage of five-star safety Kamari Wilson is getting ready to make his college decision. A little bit of an interesting angle and placement there for a while if you're a Georgia fan, and obviously most of the folks who are watching on our Dog Nation channels are UG fans. We have some SEC country folks tuning in there as well. You see the A&M, you see the Florida, you see the Florida State, the LSU. For a while, the camera angle, we couldn't quite see that Georgia hat, and you were left to wonder, was there a Georgia hat even on the table for Kamari Wilson? It is well off to the left. I got to tell you, as someone who follows the hat science, the fact that the Kamari Wilson hat somewhere near the Gulf of Mexico there makes me a little bit nervous. But nonetheless, that is the situation there as he gets ready to make his college decision. Of course, hard not to notice in the last little bit, there's been some online chatter that has certainly seemed to erupt here for the Florida Gators on this. Wilson, of course, spent the final weekend of the 2022 cycle at Florida ahead of this college decision day today. There'd been some chatter about that. Georgia's obviously been in the mix for Kamari Wilson for quite some time. You see there in his hometown of Fort Pierce, Florida. Of course, Kamari played his high school football this year at IMG Academy, but getting ready to make that big announcement here coming up in just a little bit. Live coverage here on the Dog Nation video channels brought to you by Kroger and Georgia Farm Bureau. It's already been quite an interesting day for Georgia on the recruiting front. A lot of the big names that Georgia fans were hoping to secure letters of intent for, who had long time been commitments for the most part, that has been what today has been all about, including just a little bit earlier, Julian Humphrey, who at one point in time was a Florida commit, decommitted from Florida, committed to Georgia, had been very vocal as a supporter of UGA during his Georgia commitment, was recently reoffered by the brand new Florida staff led by new head coach Billy Napier. There'd been a little bit of drama about what Humphrey might do, but he reaffirmed his pledge by signing with Georgia here today. And, of course, five-star cornerbacks like Dalen Everett and Jaheim Singletary, they have gone into the fold there as well. The Jalen Walkers and the Bear Alexanders, they have done that too. There are a couple of Georgia commits that won't, at least today, become signees of this program, and in some cases won't become that at all. Tyree West, defensive line commit, rumored to be maybe on his way out of the Georgia class, was at one point in time thought to maybe be going to Florida State. He instead flipped his commitment to Tennessee today and signed with the Vols. There's been some rumors that Marquise Groves-Killebrew, a longtime defensive back commit, might be flipping his commitment and then eventually signing with Texas A&M. We'll continue to follow that. Kamari Wilson, when he makes his announcement coming up in a few minutes' time, one way or another, this is not the only announcement the Georgia fans are still interested in for today. There is also still chatter out there involving Marvin Jones Jr., the elite pass rusher. There's obviously Shamar James, the terrific linebacker. There has been some new chatter emerge related to Deion Smoke Bowie, a one-time Georgia pledge who decommitted, went to Texas A&M, seemingly now back in play for Georgia once again. That's a name worth following here a little bit. But for now, the man of the hour is the five-star safety Kamari Wilson from Fort Pierce, Florida. And you must acknowledge here that there has been some chatter potentially connecting Wilson to a program outside UGA here for the last last couple of hours or so, and that program might indeed be Florida and not Georgia, as Billy Napier tries to make a big splash here coming up in his first signing day as Florida head coach. Of course, Georgia going to fight this one down to the wire, as it's been fighting for Wilson the entire time, so we'll pay close attention to all that, and we'll give you that announcement live here coming up in just a moment on these Dog Nation video channels. Jeff Sintel on the scene for us, getting that camera position secure. You see right now the work being done there around the table where Wilson will eventually sit to get everything squared away on that and to get everybody kind of ready to go. So we'll keep our eyes on all of that and get ready to show this for you here in just a little bit. Big thanks to Kroger and Georgia Farm Bureau for all of this here today. Let me remind you with our friends at Kroger to make sure you check out Kroger.com/boost. This is a great new membership model that Kroger has for you, which offers all kinds of terrific incentives, including free grocery delivery, also twice the fuel points, and it can be had for as low as $59 a year. So if you haven't tried Kroger Boost yet, this is a great time to experiment with this, to learn more about that. Check out Kroger.com/boost for a lot more on that. It's Kroger.com/boost, and you can be a big part of everything going on at Kroger. Great new membership program coming up with Kroger Boost. Make sure you check that out today. We are still a few minutes away from the big announcement coming from Kamari Wilson, so we'll keep our camera right there on that scene. You can see all the movement as it unfolds, and a lot of times it's just kind of interesting to be able to, to kind of see just the setup that goes on getting ready for one of these announcements. There's obviously a lot of that. The Georgia hat, of course, way to the left here with A&M, Florida, Florida State, LSU. It seems like there's a little bit of a, kind of a weird feng shui thing kind of going on anyway with the way in which the hats all kind of seem to lean to the left side on the table as it is. So I guess you can decide for yourself kind of what that means. While we have some time, we'll jump in here and get some of your comments as well on kind of what you think about the day so far for Georgia, your thoughts on Wilson, and what might still come after this with Marvin Jones Jr. and Shamar James and others who are kind of potentially on their way with all of that. So let's try DogNation.com here at first, and let's see how folks are doing there on the Dog Nation side of things. Yeah, so as I said before, the only thing I have to offer by way of hat science is the Georgia hat's in the middle of next week. Like, that's probably not a great sign, but we'll see how that goes. But yeah, the Georgia hat being what appears to be 6 inches farther away than the next closest hat, a little tricky there on that. So, trying to get in here and offer some of these comments. A little bit of an issue for that right now. Let's see if having a little trouble with the comments there on DogNation.com. We'll see if we can get those going here in just a little bit. Let me go to Facebook instead. We'll take some comments over there on Facebook. Glad to have you with us as 5-star safety Kamari Wilson gets ready to make his announcement here coming up in just a little bit. Tom Skinner thinking it might be Florida. We'll see about that here in just a little bit. Ted Young gives you a go Dogs. Billy Hurley says the hat science going on. Yeah, as said before, I think he might need a forklift to reach that Georgia hat right now, so that's a little concerning, but we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, poor Jeff Glickman, like a lot of the rest of the folks, had to kind of wonder where the Georgia hat even is. Dustin Goodwin also pointing out the gap. Honestly, you could drive a semi-truck in between the A&M hat and the Georgia hat right there. I'm just telling you right now, that does not seem great. Joshua Gibbs says the wall is Jackson State blue. I'm colorblind, so some of that stuff is lost on me. I don't think they probably painted the wall just for today, but Tom Skinner asking the same thing. Like, where it even is the Georgia hat? Yeah, it's way off to the left. If you see, like, my laptop right here, the Georgia hat's kind of like right there next to that. Not close. Not close. Eddie Dabalski, anything more official on the Bowie rumors? Only that they exist and that it's going to still be several more hours before we find out about Deion Bowie. But that has obviously been out there. And this is one of those things that's probably erupted, for those of you that follow this stuff very closely, probably in the last 24 hours. I don't know that Bowie's was generating a lot of Georgia chatter 72 hours ago, but in the last day or so, there's been more Bowie talk, and it seems like that talk centers around him as an offensive prospect now and maybe not as a defensive prospect. Oh, let's get some more of your comments. Fred Evans checking in. Appreciate that. Chad Williams says that UGA hat's in California. Yeah, it really is. That UGA hat's a long way away. A long way away. Nate Thomas on the subject of Christopher Smith coming back. Listen, actually, why don't we do this? Let's hear from Kirby Smart on this because obviously, Georgia's added a lot of defensive backs today between Singletary and Dalen Everett and, obviously names like that, 5-star safety Malachi Starks. But a guy like Kamari Wilson does remain a need for this program, even if, he, one of our commenters suggests, what if Christopher Smith were to come back? Listen, no matter what stands to happen with Georgia with its defensive backs, Kirby Smart, when he spoke to the reporters a little earlier this day, was quite emphatic that defensive back remains a tremendous position of need for Georgia. That means both cornerbacks and safeties. Let me let you hear Kirby on that topic from a little earlier today.
I don't know what you would be referring to. I don't know how many are in there. I get confused between what's in and what's not in, but we don't have enough. We're still lower than we've ever been in terms of defensive backs. So I'm not real smart about accounting, but first in, first out, how many in, how many out. We have more leaving than we have coming. And we were already below. So if you have more leaving than you have coming, then you're actually negative net gain. So we're still behind the defensive back position, and it's a position that's been really, it's been tough for us this year because we've not been able to play dime packages. We've not been able to do some of the things we want to do, and that's 6 DBs on the field. And I am really proud of the DBs in this class that we have, but we're not anywhere near where we used to be. I mean, I think we have 7 that left since the last year. And then you throw in the seniors, those kind of core Georgia guys that have been here forever that are now finishing. When you add that 7 plus 4 or 5, that's a 1-year window of 13 to 14 guys. So in my mind, we're still kind of short numbers of scholarship players.
So that's Kirby Smart making it very clear that Georgia's pursuing a lot of defensive backs because in his mind they need a lot of defensive backs, and one of those would be Kamari Wilson, who's obviously been a factor. Georgia's been a factor in his recruitment for quite some time. Coming up in a few minutes' time, we're going to let you see Kamari Wilson make his college choice live here on the Dog Nation video channels. Of course, our friends at SEC Country kind of checking in on this there as well. We're brought to you by Kroger and Georgia Farm Bureau. By the way, big thanks to Georgia Farm Bureau for being a part of this. They've been your insurance provider in our state since 1959, living and working and doing life in communities just like yours and mine across our great state here. So make sure you check them out because obviously dependable transportation is a big part of your life, and part of dependable transportation is reliable auto insurance. It means an insurance provider that keeps its promises to you. That's what Georgia Farm Bureau has been doing in Georgia since 1959 when it comes to auto insurance. Friendly folks who are on the other side of the phone when you've got a claims need or when you want to talk about your policy or anything related to that. That's what Georgia Farm Bureau will do for you. So check them out online. Find out why Georgia Farm Bureau is always the home team. It's gfbinsurance.com. That is gfbinsurance.com. All right, we'll take some YouTube comments here for a little bit, and then we'll get ready to show you live coverage of Kamari Wilson when he gets ready to make his announcement here in just a bit. Space Coast checking in to say FSU fan hoping and praying Kamari goes to either us or Georgia, so he doesn't want him to go to Florida. McBreezy Penguin checking in saying how much they love Deion Sanders. And obviously, listen, Deion's made a big impact today. He certainly deserves a lot of credit for what he's been able to do. Ryan Pohl on the subject of Shamar James. That's another Georgia-Florida battle that we'll be watching later on this evening. Now, one of the things that makes James different is that James was a long-time Florida commit. If Dan Mullen doesn't get fired, you don't have really much reason to believe that James would have ever changed his commitment from Florida to begin with. So the James thing, you're dealing with a player that's been long time connected to Florida who kind of opened himself back up after the coaching change. In the case of Kamari Wilson, this is probably an example of Florida getting more involved, if it indeed is the case, as the online chatter has suggested. This is an example of a player getting more involved with Florida because of the coaching change. So a little bit different in terms of how Kamari Wilson and Shamar James have been impacted by the coaching change there at Florida. The firing of Dan Mullen probably moved James away from Florida, whereas seemingly the hiring of Billy Napier, maybe most specifically Corey Raymond here, has maybe drawn Kamari Wilson a little closer to Florida. But we'll obviously follow that and see what the announcement is coming up in just a moment. Hoop category says prediction on Kamari Wilson. Well, probably a little late for any kind of predicting. We're going to find out for ourselves here coming up in just a moment. Chief Noel 44 on the subject of Billy Napier is obviously trying to make a splash here in his first early signing period as the Florida coach, and you really expect nothing less than that. Obviously, a coach like this has to have something to show for National Signing Day. Florida beginning the day ranked outside the top 70. I believe only a total of 8 public commits. So obviously making some sort of impact was kind of job one for Billy Napier. He's going to try to do that. Let's see what else. Noah Sheldon 500 on the subject of those Alabama wide receivers. Yeah, I mean, if you want to know why Georgia needs defensive backs as badly as it does, is because of those kind of head-to-head battles against a program like Alabama, which has excelled at the wide receiver position. You want guys who can guard those guys. And clearly in the SEC championship, Georgia didn't have enough of them. So getting players like what Georgia's already gotten in Dalen Everett, what Georgia's already gotten in Malachi Starks, what Georgia's already gotten in the person of Jaheim Singletary, those were all the kind of big recruiting wins that Georgia had to have for this class. You know, Smart, in the clip you heard a moment ago, kind of alluded to the way in which a lot of these stories are told over the course of a multitude of cycles, that you know, some of what Georgia's still living with are the guys that left the program after 2020, that you spent a couple of cycles trying to bring, you know, capable replacements in for that, and that's exactly what Georgia's trying to do. By the way, new image on your screen now, you see that, a reference to Philippians 4:13, a nice Bible verse from Kamari Wilson. Also, now to go along with the 5 hats on the table, you see images of Wilson from his recruiting visits wearing the various uniforms, the traditional white top, gold pants there for LSU, the all-white look for Texas A&M, a little bit of a Florida State right there in the middle, the Florida Gators there just off to what will be stage left, I should say stage right, on your screen there when it comes to the Florida Gators. Then the Georgia Bulldogs jersey on the far right as we're looking at that, and a little bit more of a non-traditional look. I believe, is that the all-black or is that the black jersey, red pants? I can't quite tell based on how the graphic looks if that's a black pair of pants or a red pair of pants that Kamari's wearing there for Georgia, but clearly kind of a non-traditional look there with the alternate uniform for UGA. So a nice backdrop for Kamari as he gets ready to make his announcement. Also, it looks like at the bottom left corner of that graphic that he'll be behind him some well wishes and some loved words by his family there. So a very cool thing as they celebrate the big day for him. And also the cowboy hat there for the Texas A&M image. I kind of missed that a moment ago. Looking like a member of the Dutton Ranch there with the cowboy hat on. Good stuff there from Kamari Wilson. B.A.'s Cardigan asked about where Georgia sits right now in recruiting. Obviously, the final number still being tabulated as far as the rank for Georgia. But the one thing you can't say if you're a UGA fan, no matter how this class ends up in terms of what you still add to it, it is already an elite class that's been put together here with what Georgia's already brought in. But you know how it goes in the late stages of a recruiting cycle, whether it be Shamar James or Kamari Wilson right now or anything else that's still on the way. Georgia wants to add to that. Georgia fans want to see that added to. So Georgia's at no worse than a top 3 class today, no matter what happens, but obviously trying to make that push for even greater heights based on kind of how this goes here in a little bit. We are probably a little less than 15 minutes away from Wilson making his announcement. And, Michael, what we'll do in a few minutes, no need to do this right now, but what we'll do in a few minutes is kind of check in on the audio there on that and let folks hear a little bit of that sound there. As said before, no need to do that right now. We don't want to peer too much into those private conversations, but we'll tune into the audio in a little bit. That way we don't miss it once it starts. Brady Carver says, Dog Nation doesn't normally send video coverage for misses. I know that's kind of the common theory that we wouldn't be there unless we knew Kamari Wilson was going to Georgia. Trust me, as of right now, I don't know that. Now, I'm not. You see Jeff Santel on your screen. Who knows what Jeff knows there in Fort Pierce, Florida? But I certainly cannot tell you right now that Kamari Wilson is going to Georgia. And we have covered guys that have not gone to UGA. So this decision was not made to cover this live because we knew that Kamari Wilson was going to Georgia. This decision to cover this live was based on the fact this was an announcement of note for Georgia here today. Now, obviously, it's just sort of good theater to find out what he indeed does. But this is not a fix. And I've tried to tell you all that before. We've swung and missed on some of these before. So if we only go to ones that Georgia's going to get, then we're not very good at what we do because we've been live for a few of these that Georgia hasn't gotten, and there's a very good chance that this may be another one of those here in just a little bit. Reformation Logistics says, can a recruit flip between now and February? It depends on if that announcement is also followed by the letter of intent. We've seen some examples before, like Trey Sanders comes to mind on this, where, I think a lot of Georgia fans felt like Georgia was in good shape there in that recruitment. And then when Sanders made his announcement, he announced for Alabama. That was a big surprise. And then remember how we waited almost, 12 hours for the letter of intent to finally get signed, and we never really knew if that was like chicanery or what. So, the announcement itself is not the binding agreement. The letter of intent is the binding agreement, and in some cases, recruits send their letter of intent, but then have their public ceremony to kind of go through the motions of signing when they've actually already done that. In the case of someone like Wilson, a high-profile announcement like this, a lot of times the opposite is true, where what Wilson will do on video in a moment is a commitment announcement, the letter of intent to be signed after that. And we have seen things happen where letters of intent get, air quotes here, lost in the mail or something along those lines. So I guess anything in recruiting is possible, but no reason to believe that what Wilson does in a moment won't be his final decision, as they're going through some mic checks and some things like that and kind of getting ready to go here in a little bit. Let me see if I can check back in on Dog Nation. I had a little issue getting the comments on Dog Nation a moment ago. They're up now. All right, let's try this again over at dognation.com. Let me just refresh the page and see if I can get now we're seeing some comments. Over here on dognation.com, some of your comments there. Of course, we're all brought to you by Kroger and Georgia Farm Bureau here, getting ready for the big announcement for 5-star safety Kamari Wilson. Some Georgia fans still feeling pretty good about this. Other Georgia fans kind of feeling like the writing may be on the wall. Whipping post, a little bit of an Allman Brothers homage, also pointing out what I think is pretty true. That Georgia hat's a long way away right now, folks. A long way away. Also pointing out that the Florida State jersey is the one that he's wearing in the center of the graphic. Yeah, I don't know if that necessarily means anything or not. I'd be pretty surprised if it's Florida State here on this. But listen, I've also been really surprised before. Allison Scally, the subject of Jeff Sintel. Yeah, we saw Jeff in the field of vision of the camera a little earlier. So Jeff there in Fort Pierce, Florida, and whatever Kamari Wilson announces in a moment will hopefully get Jeff on the phone and allow that to be a preview of what's coming the rest of the day for Georgia, with Marvin Jones Jr. still out there, with Shamar James still out there, Deion Smoke Bowie still out there. We'll let Jeff kind of preview some of that for us here in a little bit. J-Dog on the subject of Jackson State. It's one of those things where there had been some internet chatter related to Jackson State a little earlier today, but honestly, I never really saw any true source material for that. It's one of those things that I think was just kind of one of those rumors that had really no connection to fact whatsoever. Now, I guess on a day like this, anything is possible, but the early talk that I heard regarding Jackson State seemed to be just the sort of typical social media innuendo that was not really connected to anything. The more substantial rumors, if you're a Georgia fan to be concerned about, is what's popped up here as of late related to Florida. That, at least right before we came on video, that seemed to be the thing that was the bigger concern there. And I have now been moved out of the bottom corner of the screen so you can get a better look at the Georgia hat, which is, listen, if the other four hats are oceanfront property, I'm somewhere on Montpelier Drive right now or something like that. I mean, I'm a good ways away from the Georgia hats, kind of a good ways away for the rest of them. A little concerning here right now. More of your comments there, dognation.com. Of course, brought to you by Kroger and Georgia Farm Bureau, getting ready for a big one. We'll be back here live one way or another, no matter how this works out. We'll be back live around 6 p.m. tonight for more recap of all the big day for recruiting. So hopefully there'll be some more good news to talk about. It's already been a great day for UGA, and obviously the hopes are it gets even better. We'll be on live to cover that for you a little bit later on. Rafa Rich ready to see Wilson make his announcement. Yeah, that's expected to come in about 10 minutes or so, a little less than 10 minutes probably. Yard Dog also bringing up a pretty good point. That in the case of Kamari Wilson, one of the things that I think has made some Georgia fans feel very good about this for quite some time is the fact that Georgia has a history of doing very well with recruits from IMG Academy. This is the kind of thing that Georgia has fared very well with, but in this particular case, that may or may not count here in this one, but obviously over the course of time, Georgia's done very well with IMG Academy-type recruits. Old Soul and Spirit on the subject of Travis Hunter doing a hat toss today. Yeah, he threw them all, right? He threw Georgia. He threw Florida State. I think he even threw Auburn, which I thought was even kind of funny. That was even on the dais, if you will, for Travis Hunter. But yeah, a lot of hat tosses for the nation's number one prospect a little earlier. We'll see if Kamari Wilson has anything like that in store for this coming up here in a little bit. Rafa Rich was also not happy about Hunter throwing the hats. Yeah, that's one of those things where I have to try not to be a hypocrite, because obviously when Quay Walker's throwing hats, I love that. And if Travis Hunter's throwing hats, I don't like that quite as much, but a lot of that has to do with the school that I cheer for. So from that standpoint, I'm going to try to be a little bit fair there and say, listen, generally speaking, I'm kind of okay with signing day theatrics with recruiting drama. Sometimes that goes in favor of my favorite team, and sometimes that goes against them. You just sort of have to be okay with whatever. At least I choose to be. Michael, why don't we do this? Let's bring up the volume just a little bit here because I don't want to miss any kind of announcements made in the building. We don't have to make it real loud. I don't want to, like I said, peer on too many private conversations. But let's bring some of that up here a little bit, and we'll see if we can hear that. And if it's up, I'm not hearing it. So we'll see. Now I'm hearing some of that. So we'll bring it a little bit low. Like I said, no need to put anybody's business out there, but I do want to hear it once announcements begin. Brian Whitehead said I can do with one hat, but he went overboard with the hat tosses. Yeah, a little bit too much. When you're kind of spraying the infield with a bunch of hat tosses, that ends up feeling like kind of a lot. I kind of agree with Brian there on that. Yard Dog on the subject of replacing Lewis Seen. That's one of the reasons why the Kamari Wilson story here is such a big deal. Now you've also got Malachi Starks coming in. Ja'Cory Thomas is a player that a lot of folks feel very good about in kind of a similar role. But Georgia also wants Kamari Wilson there as well, as Wilson's kind of doing some photo stuff here and some selfies and some things like that. Jimmy Barnes also a little concerned about how far away the Georgia hat is. Yeah, that thing is the middle of next week.
That's why they should have been.
Tim Fales also on the subject of Deion Sanders. Yeah, I know that's been kind of the rumor. I don't know how real any of that is right now, but it's fair to point out that I guess Steve Wiltfong, who covers all this for 24/7 Sports, he had mentioned other big-name recruits being potentially in the mix for Deion and Jackson State, and that's kind of left everybody wondering about all the uncommitted guys about, well, who might that be, which obviously kind of gets Kamari Wilson into that discussion there too. But I would say the more substantial chatter is probably related to Florida more so than kind of an off-the-board choice. Donnie Brooks does reminding us of the, sometimes the clothes around the player can be a little clue here. Says, I see a red shirt. I'm a little bit colorblind. Is that the, yeah. So the gentleman wearing the hat, that's a red shirt there. That could just be an undershirt. Or maybe there's going to be a reveal coming later on with that. Fair to point out. I see like designer labels on the other clothes. I see a Michael Kors. I see a Ralph Lauren. A lot of fancy designer labels here. I don't really see much in the way of any kind of tip off from what we're seeing there. I also, sometimes we've seen the family members all wearing the kind of pullover or the windbreaker type jackets. In this particular case, I don't see that right now either. So I don't know that the family gear provides much of a clue about anything, but we're about 5 minutes away from finding out. There is a lot of gold chains out there. That is some sharp. Am I allowed to say bling? Can I say that? That is some sharp looking bling, to be sure. Ronnie Nelson feels like that is a red shirt that the gentleman is wearing there. So and by red shirt he means Georgia shirt. So we'll see. Also, now this is an important part of hat science. Russ Calhoun brings this up, that if we assume that Kamari Wilson is right-handed and 90% of the population is, if we assume that Wilson is not right-handed, then the Georgia hat at the far right is not a bad sign, which I kind of agree with Russ on, but we had to widen our camera angle just to get the Georgia hat in the picture. So I kind of agree with Russ on this, that sometimes being on the right side for a right-handed guy is a good thing. But in this particular case, we had to change our aspect ratio just to get the Georgia hat even in the frame. So there is that. Robin Boyd said he's going to go to Vanderbilt. There you go. Jamie Huff says that the bling is reminiscent of Coach Prime. Obviously, Deion Sanders on everyone's mind today, given what he pulled off with Travis Hunter a little earlier. You see, boy, this is a business decision when the manila folders have been brought out. That's a manila folder right there, folks. That is a business thing right there. And we're getting closer to time. Let's go ahead and bring that audio back up a little bit now, if you don't mind, Michael, because we're getting closer to doing this. Live coverage here on the Dog Nation video channels, SEC Country as well. 5-star safety Kamari Wilson getting ready to choose from LSU, Florida State, Florida, Texas A&M, and Georgia. Family and friends gather around him in his hometown of Fort Pierce, Florida. Obviously a big get, and for the Georgia fans tuned in here around Dog Nation, hoping to see that be UGA, and we will find out here in a little bit. Skip Grantham says we need an elite secondary, and that's why so much attention's been paid to Jaheim Singletary and Dalen Everett earlier today, to Malachi Starks, obviously longtime Georgia commit, and now trying to add a Kamari Wilson here late in the process. You hear Wilson a moment ago saying that it's 4 o'clock. That was the time we were told he'd be getting ready to make his announcement. That must mean that we are getting close to being able to see this. Manila folders in hand, as I said before, he's ready to make that business decision here. You're talking about, according to the 24/7 Sports Composite, number 28 prospect in the country, number 2 safety, the number 5 player in the talent-rich state of Florida. This, a very big deal as Wilson gets ready to make his announcement. We'll provide live coverage here brought to you by Kroger and Georgia Farm Bureau in just a moment. Once he starts talking, I will shut up. Believe it or not, I can shut up. I will do that in a moment, and we'll let you see this as it happens. Calm before the storm there as family gathers around him, probably about a minute or so away from getting ready to make this announcement. Some Georgia fans feel confident. Other Georgia fans a little concerned. Some chatter had maybe Wilson maybe inching away from Georgia here in the last couple of hours. We'll find out if that's the case. John Daly predicts him to go to Bishop Sycamore. I don't know about that, but very funny nonetheless. Shabazz Ali says, I'll take Jackson State. Just no Florida here on that. So Shabazz weighing in on that. Dan Brookshire checking in there on that too. A lot of folks having some fun here on this. Noah Sheldon does there as well. So a lot of folks getting ready to make their big announcement, or see the big announcement from Kamari Wilson. We appreciate you being with us here on DogNation.com, the Dog Nation Facebook and YouTube pages, of course, all the other platforms there as well. Some folks kind of checking in on this on the SEC country side of things there as well. Appreciate you doing that too. Ray B checks in to say that Malachi Starks is our safety, so it won't be end of the world if he doesn't come to Georgia. I mean, that's obviously kind of the truth for Georgia right now. It is recruiting from a position of strength in that it's already added 1 5-star safety already today. So it's simply a matter of, can Georgia add another 5-star safety? It's certainly true that.
Speech before I announce.
Let's let you hear from Kamari Wilson right now.
I want to thank God. I want to thank all the coaches that took the time to recruit me, and my family, my mom, dad, my trainer, Roscoe Barber. And I also want to say something to the kids. I want to say that I want them to keep working hard as possible, keep God first, and keep academics first, and they can do anything possible through Christ. And I want to give a shout out to Fort Pierce Firehawks. They just won a championship, and the boy, I just want to say y'all boys keep going and keep doing y'all thing. One day this could be y'all. And I'll be going to the University of Florida.
So that's about enough of that. We'll pull out of that. That's about enough of that. But Kamari Wilson does choose Florida right there. Actually, let's go back up. Let's see what he says here as far as why his reasoning is for choosing Florida. Not a surprise based on chatter of the last hour. Let's hear a little bit more from Kamari Wilson on his reasoning.
I mean, Coach Billy, he's definitely turning that program around, and I have faith in him that he's gonna turn Florida to a big program, and I got trust in his process and his plan for me, and I will be furthering my education there.
Let's hear what else he has to say. If you're just joining us, 5-star safety Kamari Wilson, not a surprise based on the last couple of hours worth of chatter, has chosen the University of Florida.
He's that guy. He trained great players like Jamal Adams, Derek Stingley, and I can go on. And I want to be next. I want to be the best, top dog. Yes, sir. Go Gators.
All right, so there you go. That's 5-star safety Kamari Wilson making his choice of the Florida Gators. As said before, the entirety of the online chatter over the course of the last couple of hours had essentially spoiled that announcement from Wilson. It was largely suspected that's what he was going to choose. We knew that before we came on the air today. And obviously, Florida has gotten something to show now for a 2022 class that saw the Gators begin the day outside the top 70 in recruiting, a program desperate for any good news it could get on the recruiting trail, gets at least some good news right there as five-star safety Kamari Wilson makes his announcement. What we're going to try to do here is we're going to try to catch up with Jeff Sentell and kind of find out exactly how it is that Georgia, which had been obviously down the road with Kamari Wilson for quite some time, how it kind of slipped away from Georgia here over the course of the last weekend. Kamari spending that time in Gainesville visiting with Florida. He was very active on social media talking about that. We'll kind of find out what was instrumental there with Kamari on that. We'll try to catch up with Jeff Sentell here in just a moment. We'll also turn our attention now to about 35 minutes from now. That's when Marvin Jones Jr. is getting ready to make his announcement here coming up. The big-time edge rusher, that's a name of note for Georgia. We'll watch on that. Then, of course, other names to follow throughout the rest of the day. Still waiting to find more out later on this evening about linebacker Shamar James. And, of course, Deion Smoke Bowie has been a name that's been discussed there. Georgia will wait beyond this early signing period for names such as Ernest Green, the four-star offensive lineman that seems as of late to maybe be trending in the direction of UGA, maybe a UGA versus Bama head-to-head win if Georgia could hold on there. And, of course, Christian Miller, defensive lineman, who probably a Georgia-Ohio State head-to-head battle there. That is also one that Georgia will wait beyond National Signing Day to get a chance to hear from. So we'll take a few comments. We'll give Jeff a little bit of time. Michael, if you want to try to see if Jeff's available for us to pop on and talk to on the phone there, if you want to try to do that, I'll take some comments, and we'll see if we can hear from Jeff here on this in just a bit. Nature Gator, happy that the Florida Gators got two outstanding safeties today. So obviously that's a Florida fan feeling pretty good about what he's seen there today. Ryan Pohl says he still likes Marvin Jones, Ernest Green, and Christian Miller on their way to Georgia. So obviously Georgia still has a chance to win with a lot of big-time commits. Michael, can you hear me? Let's go ahead and try to get see if we can get Jeff on the phone if we can. Let's see what else is going on. Let me pop over to Facebook for a moment. We'll find out what folks are saying over there. Obviously, disappointing news that Wilson's made his choice to go somewhere else. Richard Pollard on the subject of the quick exodus for some Georgia fans once they did get the news they were looking for. And, yeah, sometimes that's the way that it goes. Paul and Amanda Goodman asking about Elias Ricks, obviously the transfer from LSU. Given what Georgia's brought in at the cornerback spot today with Julian Humphrey and with Dalen Everett and with who am I leaving out? Oh, yeah, Jaheim Singletary. Given what Georgia's done there at the cornerback spot today, at this point in time, I don't really know there's even much room necessarily for Elias Ricks at Georgia, which is not to say that Ricks is not a great player, but you've never really been of the belief that obviously Ricks has friends on the Georgia roster, but I've never really been of the belief that the Ricks thing was much deeper than that right now. And that kind of seems to be the case. But Georgia obviously adds a bunch of big-time cornerbacks today. Joseph Kennedy got some hate for the Gators, and obviously this will kind of spice up that Georgia-Florida rivalry again. I mean, frankly, I'm actually glad to see that Florida's still participating in tackle football. I mean, for a while I was kind of concerned that maybe they were just going to kind of pack it up. So it's kind of nice to see them participating again. So there you go. I guess they're going to try to throw their hat in the ring back in this rivalry once again. Maurice Long wishes he would have chosen another school besides Florida. So, yeah, that's kind of that on that. Mike Little on the subject of Arik Gilbert. That's obviously one of those big offseason conversations that we'll get into as far as where that goes. Clearly, Georgia's still hoping to get him back there at a certain point. John William Adams says that's going to hurt you mathematically for that number one spot in recruiting. That's definitely true. Michael Collum wishes him well. Yeah, that's like the one thing that I think we can all universally agree on. At least for me, it's a very easy thing to say. Like, I love going back and forth with Florida fans, but the one thing you should know is, and I think that you can all attest to this, like, I mock like the coach all the time, right? If you're making millions of dollars, to me, you're fair game for me to mock. Florida fans, we go back and forth for the most part. That's all good-natured. But you've never heard me say a bad word about a Florida player. You've never heard me say that. So if this is where Kamari Wilson feels like the best place for him to play football is, I'll never say a bad word about him at all. Now, I'll mock the fans. I'll mock the coaches. I'll do that kind of stuff. But I'm not going to say a bad word about the players the same way I don't trash the Georgia players either. So if this is Wilson's decision, then truly, I truly respect his decision if that's what he wants to do. But I do think it's been kind of funny, and I said this on Dog Nation Daily today. A lot of Florida fans have been reaching out to me of like, BA, how you like us now? We're recruiting. And my response to that is, that's what you're supposed to do. Like, what do you mean? Like, you want a gold star because you're recruiting? That's what you should have been doing all along. Like, Florida is a flagship university and one of the most talent-rich states in the country. This is what you should be doing. You should be a factor for elite prospects. And so this is essentially Billy Napier working his way back up to, kind of the flat ground, working his way back up to a zero that Dan Mullen would have had the program at before he got fired. So, I guess congratulations that you're recruiting now. And it's a shame that Georgia won't get this 5-star safety to go along with the other 5-star safety that it's already gotten here in this class. But as I said before, not a bad word for me to say about Kamari Wilson. He obviously got a good pitch from Florida there late at the end this past weekend. That's where he's going to go. And Florida fans feel like they finally got a recruiter there at the head coaching spot. And obviously, I guess you can't go an entire cycle without getting at least one recruit, and that is what Florida's been able to do here. Skip Grantham already looking ahead to those battles coming up in Jacksonville. Yeah, I mean, like the one thing that we know is true is the Georgia-Florida rivalry is not going out of style anytime soon. And, given what Florida should be, given what Georgia is, there's really no reason why the Georgia-Florida couldn't be the premier rivalry in all of college football. So maybe Florida will do its part to make that the case. Let's see what else. So I'm assuming we have not heard from Jeff there yet. We've tried him and not been able to reach him. Is that right? Okay. We'll see if we can try him again there in just a little bit. Also, we're coming up about 30 minutes away from Marvin Jones Jr. If we can't track down Jeff, then we'll probably get off the air here because if Georgia had gotten Kamari Wilson, I could have probably filled all the way until the Marvin Jones Jr., but I can't fill for 30 minutes on the heels of bad news. Not as easy to do. All right, let's see what else is going on over here on YouTube. Shabazz said that Jeff ran into the bus. Yeah, maybe he did. Maybe he had to catch the bus. Raphael Wright, I think, has got the right perspective. Whether, this edition joined up or not, Georgia's still getting some awesome guys. I think that's very much true. Blackbeard's Ghost said he was probably attracted by that Gasparilla Bowl swag bag. That is very funny. Ryan Pohl predicting that Georgia gets Jones Jr. and loses Shamar James. That may be very well the case. It's also kind of hard to call losing Shamar James really a loss, given the fact that he was committed to Florida to begin with. Let's see what else. Scully Reddy kind of going back to the Kyrie Elam recruitment that Florida won, but ultimately didn't probably make too big of an impact in the rivalry, and that's fair to point out. Anti-Snowbird says that he mocks Georgia fans, saying we didn't want him, he doesn't fit our style of play. I don't think you're seeing any Georgia fans saying that. Certainly not seeing me say that. Here's the one thing that I don't have to do. I don't have to lie about it. Like, obviously I'm a Georgia fan, and thankfully things are going well enough for Georgia. They don't have to lie about anything. Of course Georgia wanted Kamari Wilson. Of course that's true. We wouldn't be covering it live if Georgia didn't want Kamari Wilson. Of course that's the case. I think what some Florida fans want is someone like me to get under the desk and cry under the table because Georgia didn't get him. Honestly, that's not the case either. It can be true that Georgia wanted him. Clearly it did. It can also be true that Georgia's kind of on to the next thing now. And honestly, Georgia has already signed, not committed, but signed so many 5-stars today that it would take me kind of a while to even think of them all. I almost forgot one a moment ago when I was talking about those defensive backs. So there are a lot of things that can be true at once. On the one hand, this was another 5-star that Georgia wanted. On the other hand, Georgia's got a lot of 5-stars, and there are potentially more to come. UGA Football Highlight Film says, when does Marvin Jones Jr. sign? I believe that's coming up in about 25 minutes. We're going to be back on video tonight at 6 p.m. to try to give you, or around 6 p.m. anyway, to try to give you a little bit of an overview about how all of that's played out. This one, obviously not good news. Going the wrong direction here for you. Drill checking in to live in the past. Congratulations on your past success. That was The guy you just saw on TV, Kamari Wilson, was, 5 years old the last time Florida won anything of note, so congrats on that. Let's see what else. Back on Facebook here for a moment. Michael Collum also on the subject of Deion Sabb. Yeah, so Sabb, the former Clemson commit, did come out with a top 4 today. Georgia was involved in that top 4. A lot of that seems like very too little too late. Like I know the Dalen Everett thing came out of nowhere too, which I guess is to a certain extent true. The Sabb thing, I don't know how much I buy. And by the way, it's good to see Michael. I feel like Michael Collum is a guy we haven't seen in the comment section a ton lately. Michael, it's good to see you here today. Yeah, so Sabb, I guess, is out there, but I don't quite know how much I kind of buy into that. Oh, Joel Moody says Deion Sabb already chose Michigan, so there you go. And that's kind of where he was expected to choose, I believe. Yeah, so Deion Sabb has chosen Michigan. Thanks for that. Appreciate that. Billy Mathis said the same thing. Appreciate that. Ronnie, Peter Jeffrey Wilson saying that Georgia has been successful recruiting defensive backs. Yeah, there's no doubt that's been a success story for Georgia. And even with that success, you still don't quite get everybody you want, and that's certainly the case here too. Randy Hall said, would Jeff have made the trip if you knew that Kamari was going to choose Florida? Here's the thing, though. Like, so much of this stuff has to be kind of planned in advance. You know, it's like, especially long travel like this. So you kind of go into a day like this knowing that a lot of these battles were kind of 50-50 battles. And, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a little bit of a carnival barker by nature. It obviously makes for a better video to have the guy choose Georgia. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't. But ultimately, our job is to kind of just sort of present the news, whatever it is. So you kind of have to be wherever the news is made. And so that's just kind of what that is. All right, let's see what else. DogNation.com. Then we'll try Jeff again. We'll see if we can get him. And if not, we may have to move on. So the quarterback comments have started again, which may be my clue. It's time to get off the air. So let's do this. Let's check in with Jeff's intel after 6 p.m. We'll do that. And we'll figure out kind of where some of this kind of stuff goes. We'll watch Marvin Jones Jr. We'll follow, we'll see if Shamar James also goes back to Florida here. We will find out if anything happens with Smoke Bowie, and we'll come back live later on. All of it brought to you by Kroger and Georgia Farm Bureau. Georgia has a big day today, but you can't win them all. Georgia does not win here for Kamari Wilson. He chooses Florida a moment ago. You wish him well. You roll up your sleeves. You get ready to battle Florida again here in the very near future, and you'll keep your eye on elite pass rusher just a few minutes from right now. So stay close to Dog Nation. More on that coming up. This was our Kroger recruiting special here, brought to you by Kroger and Georgia Farm Bureau. We will be back in just a little bit, and we'll hope to hear from Jeff's intel at that time. Talk to you in a few minutes, everybody.